Hello. On this post I'm going to do something I don't normally do on this channel, and that is review two books. Trio by William Boyd and Utopia Avenue by David Mitchell. The other thing that's slightly different in this post is these books aren't my top recommendations. I enjoyed them both and they're good reads, but they're not of the same calibre for me as the other books I've talked about on here. It's interesting that both these books that were published at a similar time at the end of 2020, and they both cover a very similar period in the 1960s. Utopia Avenue starts in 1967 and covers a couple of years, and Trio is set in 1968. So it's a period that interests me. I was a student and a young person living in London at the second half of the 1960s, and both these books attempt to and succeed in evoking that period of time very, very well. So they're a lovely read in that respect. Okay, I'll start with Utopia Avenue, and maybe I'll read the first paragraph on the back cover. It sets the scene. The year is 1967 and word is spreading about a new band on London's psychedelic scene. An unlikely combination of a female folk singer, a blues bassist, a jazz drummer and an electric guitarist. Strangers to each other and from widely different backgrounds, together they create magic. Meet Utopia Avenue. Okay, so that sets the scene, and probably what I'll do is just read my notes that I made after I'd read it, which was earlier in 2022. Okay, a big book that kept me company while I recuperated from COVID. Well suited to the task, it was a light read and good fun in going back to the rock music world of 1967-68. Plenty of nostalgia, and all the more creditable as Mitchell himself wasn't born until 1969. So a good piece of novel writing to create an era which to me felt very faithful, and yet the novelist himself wasn't born in that period. Okay, my criticisms then. The characters didn't fully convince me, nor did the band quite. They were a fusion of just about everything, and a bit too much for that period. I know it was a period where kind of new forces combined with things like George Martin and the Beatles, but I just thought this was over the top, really. He had loads of fun putting real characters into the book. The living have walk-on parts and they're mentioned, and people pass them on the stairs or whatever, but those people who are now dead, they also have speaking parts in the book. So later on, when the band goes to America, they stay in the Chelsea Hotel, lots of fun there, lots of characters, and then they move out to the West Coast for that kind of psychedelic scene in the late 60s. And in the Chelsea Hotel, they pass a debonair man who apparently smelled of tea and oranges. So there's jokes there if you know Leonard Cohen's work. I also thought one of the members of the band comes from a very working class background, and he used your instead of you and your, and I just felt it was uncomfortable stylistically to go all the way through the book reading this, that. And the ending to the book, though, is, I don't think I'm giving any spoilers here, the ending is a short chapter that's written by one of the characters 50 years into the future, so more contemporary. And it made me realise what a stunning technique that is. I've read another book more recently which does exactly the same. It suddenly very quickly rockets up through decades at the end of the book. And I think I might do a post on that one day, because I can think of 4 or 5 books that have that feature in them, and it always moves me greatly when I read it. So anyway, I thought that was a surprising ending. So I know David Mitchell has loads of fans, and this book got loads of reviews, and it is good. I did enjoy it, and it's a fairly light read. It's a long read, but it's a fairly light read. And when I was convalescing a bit, it kept me good company. Although I felt it was perhaps a bit too long. I mean, David Mitchell. People rave about Cloud Atlas, which I also read and didn't rave about exactly, although I could see its skill and competence. But the only other David Mitchell book I've tried and read is called Black Swan Green, and it's clearly very autobiographical about a lad growing up in Worcestershire, I think, of David Mitchell's age, and I just thought it was a beautiful evocation of childhood, a rural childhood during that period. So he is a great writer, and I don't want to dissuade anybody from reading this book, but it wasn't quite the tops for me. Okay, the second book that I'm going to talk about is William Boyd's Trio, and again I think I'll just read the opening paragraph of the blurb because it sets the scene. So it says, summer 1968, on a film set in sunny Brighton, 3 characters are leading secret lives. Elfrida is drowning her writer's block in vodka. Talbot, coping with the daily dysfunction of making a film, is hiding something in a clandestine apartment. And the glamorous Annie is wondering why the FBI is suddenly so interested in her. Okay, so those are the trio of the title, those 3 characters. And again, I'll read my notes. What I said here was, since reading Boyd's Any Human Heart, I've read 1 or 2 others of his books, looking for another book of that order of importance. I will do a post on Any Human Heart sometime soon, because it is a book that I think is absolutely superb, absolutely superb. So in a sense, I've been looking for another William Boyd novel that matches that. So this tale, Trio's tale, of the film world on location in Brighton in 1968 didn't meet that very high bar for me. The Guardian reviewed it as superbly wry and wise. It is a very engaging novel, and it's cleverly and cleanly written and not a difficult read. The best character for me was an alcoholic writer who has been blocked for a decade, and she decides that she's going to write a novel focusing on Virginia Woolf's very last day of her life before she commits suicide. And Boyd gives successive versions of her first paragraph, and it's very funny. So through the book you keep getting the first paragraph rewritten, and he has great fun with this because it's reflecting what's happening to the character, and it's getting more and more absurd, really. And you realise that she can't get any further than the first paragraph. Some aspects of the druggy, insecure 1960s I thought were very well evoked, and Boyd even drags in an American urban terrorist, one of the weathermen basically, who's on the run from the FBI. And it is impressive and it's accomplished writing, but I find myself agreeing with the Guardian reviewer who said that a writer as skilled as Boyd could and should take more risks in this, his late period. And I think that's exactly what I feel. Any Human Heart was just so good that and I think it was quite a bit more experimental in the sense, in its style and content. And this book is a bit of a caper, really, Trio. So it's very, very good, and I did enjoy reading it. But you kind of think that William Boyd might have it in him to do something as brilliant as Any Human Heart again. So that's my view on these 2 books, which I read quite close together. I'm not, lost in the 1960s. They just happened to come out and get a lot of attention. And I got one for Christmas, and I wanted a novel to read when I wasn't feeling too good. Utopia Avenue fulfilled that. So I would recommend both of these books, particularly if there's some of the things that I've said or about them appeal, and don't be put off by my comments. They're just not quite as brilliant from both of these authors as I was expecting. That's my view. Thank you. If you like any of my videos, could you please click the thumbs up underneath? As I'm told, this will help others get to see them. Thank you.